Well, good Wednesday morning to you, and I want to talk about worship today. You know, a lot of times when we say the word worship, we actually think we're talking about Sunday morning at 11 a.m., right? It's the time we worship the Lord. But really, worship in the Bible is more about us personally and not necessarily what we do corporately on Sunday morning. And so I want to bring to you some thoughts today. I read a little devotional recently, and it just kind of has my wheels turning a little bit more about this. But John 4, verse 24 says, "They that worship the Lord must worship him in spirit and in truth." And so what actually does that mean? They that worship him. The Bible describes worship in two ways. One, it's the idea of kissing towards. We often think about, maybe to a loved one, or my granddaughter blows me a kiss, right? Because why? There is a relationship, there is a love relationship between two individuals, and one might blow a kiss. The idea of worship is that you and I are sending a message. We are doing something in a physical way that sends a message to God that we love them, right? My granddaughter loves me, so she blows me a kiss, right? That's a fond, loving way of saying goodbye or I love you. The second word that is used in worship and understanding this is the idea of kneeling or bowing down in a prostrate position before someone who deserves respect. We love God, we fear God in a positive way, we respect God, and so we might bow down before him. If you look at love and worship together from the Old Testament, it plays this idea out that we bow down, we worship, we blow a kiss, we love towards that person. Or it also goes one step further and has the idea of serving. And so we not only worship God with song, we worship him in heart, soul, mind, spirit, as John 4:24 says, but also then that step further goes with that, the idea that when I serve the Lord, I am worshiping him. And so there's a kind of a broad spectrum of what it really means to worship the Lord. But I want to come back to the benefit of it and some of the distractions that come with it. Someone said this: our worship of God invites him into our scenario. Isn't that a great thought? No matter what's going on in my life, right? Fear, anxiety, boredom, frantic, right? We worship God and it invites him into that scenario. And what better antidote to fear or anxiety than the actual worship of God? And so I need to constantly build into my life the idea of worship so that I am inviting God into my scenario. I put down a couple notes here I want to touch base on, but their biggest reasons that you and I don't worship God is this: self. I am the problem. I am the reason why I don't worship God more. And I think it's this: one, we get distracted, and two, we forget. Distraction comes in the idea of anxiety, worry, fear, all the negatives that draw my attention away from God rather than to God. And so I'm fighting a situation in my life. I'm going through a time or a season in my life. I am getting distracted because I am worrying about something. And so I'm not worshiping God. And so I'm the problem there. Or I just get busy. I go to work. I love my job. I go to work. I get busy in my day, and I find myself planning, preparing, working on, strategizing, helping people, doing things around the facility. And all of a sudden, I realized I've gone by maybe an hour or two or three, and I've forgotten to worship the Lord. And so I hope, not in a bad way, but I hope you're like me. I hope we're in this together. I hope that we're normalized in that sense, that we get busy or get distracted, and we need to be reminded, hey, I am here to worship God. Part of my calling in life is to worship the Lord. And so it comes down to, I think, a focus or a priority. A focus or a priority. What do I love? See, I love my wife, right? And there needs to be a focus and priority there. And so what do I love? What am I afraid of? What things in life drive fear in my life? And so where's my focus? Where's my priority? Is it on those I love? Is it on what I'm afraid of? Or maybe it's on the positive side of things with what do I want to accomplish? See, a lot of times the goals we set, the bucket list we have, the things we want to accomplish drive us forward, which can be positive, but it also can be a negative. And so focusing, do I love the Lord? Am I afraid of the consequences if I don't worship the Lord? What do I want to accomplish? And so as we drive ourselves in these questions, it brings us back to, of course we love the Lord. So therefore, am I doing the things that ought to invite him into my scenario? Am I worshiping him? Am I showing affection? Am I kissing towards? Am I bowing down before him in a humble, respectful, worshipful attitude? Or maybe am I serving or not serving, and I should be, and so I'm drawing myself towards the Lord by doing ministry for his sake. And so I have 4 things I want to say. Worship requires focus from self to God. I have to turn my focus off of myself towards the Lord. Second, a discipline to create a habit. And, a lot of times we think, well, my love for the Lord and my worship ought to be more than a habit. It ought to be more than mechanical. And yes, that's true. But think of things so simple as brushing your teeth, right? We don't say that's a bad habit. I do it all the time and it's negative. No, we say it's a good thing and it promotes good health. And we understand how important oral hygiene is for the rest of our body. And so think of your worship to the Lord in a positive way. And as we create this habit, it spreads throughout the rest of our body in a healthy way. Third one, intentional input. I need to have daily intentional input, and that starts with my Bible time, my prayer time, my worship, which could come through music. That is a great way of worshiping. Maybe listening to video sermons that are something that is available everywhere on the internet these days. And then also people, positive input of people. The people I surround myself with will help me in my worship because why? I have the right input in my life. And then the 4th one. So 1 is focus from self to God. 2 is discipline to create a habit. 3 is intentional input. 4 is time. Worship takes time. I have to take the time to do it. I have to take the time to be consistent at it. And then I have to take time and understand it takes more time to reap the benefits. And so worship the Lord. They that worship the Lord must do so in spirit and in truth. And so it's our heart, our soul, based on the truth of what Scripture is. And all of these principles I'm sharing with you are biblical principles. So I want to give you 2 passages, both from David out of the book of Psalms. David, the king, the man after God's own heart, but also we know the man that was full of sin. And so what does he say? And listen to this worship and how he does this and what the attention, the focus, the input is in his life. Psalm 63, verse 1 through 5. O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh is longing for you in a dry and a thirsty land where there is no water. So I have looked for you in the sanctuary to see your power and your glory, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise you. Thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise you with my joyful lips. Can you see and hear the passion of David's heart? He is seeking after, he is having positive input, he is physically raising his hands in worship. His focus and attention is towards God. You can see in a soul way him blowing a kiss to God because I love you, bowing down before God because I love you, and his attention and focus is on the Lord. There's another passage that David wrote, also it's Psalm 145, and let me read this to you. I will extol you, O God, my King. I will bless your name forever. Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. I will meditate on the glorious splendor of your majesty and on your wondrous works. There's worship. I will meditate on your glorious splendor of your majesty. So I want to encourage you. Worship is easy and worship is difficult. When we turn our attention to the Lord and just think about all the good things God has done for us, it's easy. But it's that discipline, focus, turning our attention away from self, making our mind go towards God. A guy named David Villa wrote this, and I want to leave you with this last thought. When we start to worship, we stop looking at the fight in front of us and start looking at the God in us. We stop looking at the fight in front of us and we start looking at the God in us. God bless you. Worship the Lord today. Turn on some Christian music, maybe a podcast or some Bible app plan that you can turn your attention to the Lord and worship him.